Welcome to the Breakthrough Advisor Podcast. In this podcast, we inspire advisors with ideas and pathways to break through barriers and build a thriving retirement income business. We will interview innovative technology developers, business leaders, and successful advisors, then help you organize and execute these ideas to move your business forward.
Good morning. This is Jack Martin with InsureMark. I want to thank you for joining us for the Breakthrough Advisor podcast today. I'm tickled to have Jack Sharry, who's the CMO with LifeYield, and Jeff Quigley, who's one of their senior vice presidents, with us today to talk about LifeYield and to talk about Social Security planning. And I couldn't think of two more appropriate guys to have on this conversation. In my mind, Jack, you guys are operating at the intersection of technology and advisor sales. So share a little bit about what's going on with LifeYield and what you see with respect to Social Security planning and how that all plays out for financial advisors in 2022.
Sure. We're probably one of the best kept secrets in the marketplace, largely because we're the intel inside in so many systems. So just to give you a sense of the big picture, Jack, and to all the folks that are tuned in, LifeYield has assets under administration of about $2 trillion. We've got over 100,000 advisors that use our capabilities. We have a variety of capabilities, including software for Social Security optimization. We'll talk a good bit about that, I'm sure, today. We also help maximize retirement income through tax-smart accumulation. We'll talk about that if you'd like. How to manage it over time, and then how to draw it down in an efficient way. So essentially, LifeYield really helps the advisor help the client maximize retirement income.
Good answer. And in the process of doing that, end up gathering more assets, accumulating more sales, right?
Yeah. So to give you an example, some of the name brands that we work with are some of the biggest in the industry, like Morgan Stanley, Merrill, Ameriprise. So those are some of our clients. SEI and a bunch where we work closely with Orion and Investnet and so on. So in terms of what we've come to learn, and Morgan Stanley is a great example. In fact, just this past week or a week or two ago, James Gorman, who's the chairman at Morgan Stanley, gave their earnings call. Their numbers were eye-popping. The big one I took away, though, is that they have more than doubled their inflows of assets. So I'm always curious, okay, if you double the norm, why is that? A couple of days later, I listened to the Merrill Lynch earnings call, and they did the same. So something's up. And here's what I see. Basically, as we've been through COVID, people, investors, clients, human beings made a lot of decisions. And those decisions were life-changing. So they decided to retire in record numbers. They decided to retire early in record numbers. So there's money in motion. I was trying to understand it. So I called around, as I often do, called around to industry leaders and talked to them about, so what's up? Why is that? And as one former senior, basically a CEO of a major wirehouse said to me, he says, basically people made decisions. People made the kind of decisions that are going to affect the rest of their lives. And I know we'll talk about this some more, and Jeff will tune in with some ways to go about grabbing some of that money. But basically what's underway is money is in motion. It's going to continue and accelerate, in fact. And really the opportunity I see, and I think so many see, is how do you put digital and human advice together to improve the outcome for the investor? Oh, and by the way, you improve the outcome for the advisor.
Yeah, there's a really smart guy said to me once, we don't make waves, we ride waves. And what you just described is a wave. And I want to focus in on the last little piece you said, which is that it's only going to accelerate.
Right.
Because a lot of guys may be saying, yeah, I read the news about what happened in 2020 and 2021, but am I too late? Is what I'm experiencing today all that I'm going to get? And what I hear from you is the message is no.
No, the Alliance for Lifetime Income, which is an annuity group that represents most of all the major insurance companies that are in the annuity business. They did a study not too long ago. Jason Fichtner, who at one time was the number 2 guy at Social Security and was now at a think tank in Washington looking at this kind of stuff, did an independent analysis. And his takeaway is that right now there's about 12,000 people retiring every day. We've been talking about that coming for a while. It's now here, and that's going to 13 or 14,000 over the next few years. So it's only going to accelerate. And frankly, to the point of today's discussion, one of the points of today's discussion is about Social Security. The first question people ask when they consider retirement is, "What do I do about Social Security?" They want to know, how do I set myself up? When's the right time to take it? As we can talk about in more detail, basically, you're generally better off deferring if you can make that work. And when you do that, the following question is, okay, we're going to defer. Now what do we do? So it really sets up whether it's a planning discussion or further product discussion or however you might play it out. But really what it comes down to, as these record numbers of folks retiring is happening right now and going to accelerate, those questions are only going to get more prominent in terms of how an advisor runs their business.
So one of the things you just said that's really important is the first question people tend to ask is, how much am I going to get from Social Security, right? Mm-hmm. And I think in the minds of a lot of advisors, that's a down market question. That folks that are super dependent on Social Security are going to be asking that question more frequently than people who are a little bit more affluent. And I don't know what you've seen, but I saw some data earlier this month that across net worth and across income levels, that's still the most common question. Because and I think that's because a lot of us think, for crying out loud, I paid in thousands of dollars in taxes.
Absolutely.
I want to get my money back, right?
Absolutely. Well, I'll give you an example, and I'm going to turn over here to Jeff because he knows the numbers better than I. But we serve tens of thousands of advisors and then hundreds of thousands of their clients. But we only work with and through advisors in this regard. But the average amount of savings or enhanced income over time that we find is about $150,000. So I don't care what level you're at, if you're the highest of net worth or you're lowest of the low, 150 grand is 150 grand. So maybe Jeff, you know the numbers better than I, but it's meaningful.
I would say, to add to what you both have talked about, if the wave is here, right, and we're riding the wave, more and more people need this advice about Social Security, and the numbers, at least from our point of view, the numbers bear that out in that over the last 2 years, we've engaged our advisors have engaged over 150,000 investors, whether they're clients or prospects. And over those 150,000 engagements, the software identified almost $24 billion in potential income. And what I mean by that is when we run an optimization, we compare how the client walks into the office, how they say they want to file, how they think it's best for them to file, versus what's truly. So that number that Jack references, $150,000 a household, over all of our business, it's $24 billion. And, that's nothing to sneeze at. And if the big point here is that if you leave folks alone to make this decision and you don't leverage technology to help you illustrate and quantify why the discussion is important, a lot of people are going to make bad decisions. And it's crucial for some in retirement to make sure that they maximize that Social Security income. So,
Jeff, I mean, you're kind of at the tip of the spear on this with LifeYield and Social Security Planner. So, for advisors out there who are thinking, this Social Security planning thing's been going on for quite a while. Aren't there a lot of Social Security calculators out there? Aren't there a lot of advisors who are talking about this already? Am I late to the party? So, what's your experience? You talk with advisors every day.
The question has never been more relevant. With the sheer numbers, Jack said 12,000 a day, and that's only going to increase and peak at 2024. So if you have all of these folks getting ready to retire, and their first question is, "Hey, when do I file? How do I maximize?" The time is now to get started on this. And we've talked about this before, Jack. Advisors don't need to shy away from this conversation. They need to find a trusted partner on the technology side that takes the guesswork out, right? There's over 20, Mary Beth Franklin says it all the time. There's 2,700 rules. It's a huge stack of laws that govern Social Security. Advisors don't have to be an expert. They have to partner with a company or a firm or technology that helps them make the complex simple and easy for folks to see the value in the discussion. So more and more advisors that I talk to and the firms that I work at, advisors are engaging more and more on this topic than they ever have before. Our support requests are up dramatically, just with folks wanting to leverage the tool, wanting to explore unique situations, and wanting to help their folks file the right way for Social Security.
Jack, if I could add to what Jeff has just commented on, one of the things to keep in mind, so there are many very good Social Security optimization tools. We would make the argument ours is the best, largely because we have more than the rest of the other purveyors combined in terms of the number of advisors we work with. So we're the clear industry leader. And so that begs the question, so why are they coming to LifeYield as opposed to all the others? And by the way, one of the things we do find is that as prevalent as Social Security tools are, they're not talked about nearly as much as they could or should be. So for those that are smart, and we work with a lot of very smart advisors, they just raise the question, have you thought about Social Security? Or more often it's the client that's saying, I'm thinking about Social Security, what should I do? Either way, you have an answer. And some of the things that Jeff can talk about in more detail, we've set it up so it's really easy. Ours is a very easy system to work. And we also have support so that if you're trying to figure it out, you might be a little skittish because you don't know all of the 2,700 rules, which, by the way, no one does except for one of our colleagues, Allison Dorosky, who does that for us. We have that kind of capability available to help out. So that's more of just to make you feel comfortable, to get used to it. What we find mostly, it's you show them that we're going to give you 150 grand more on average in terms of outcome. There aren't a lot of questions other than how do I get it? I'll add one other thing. And that is that the first question is, what do I do about Social Security? So it's already on their minds. The second question is, what do I do about my rollover? So those that might be interested in getting rollovers as part of their business, we find that once you solve the first question, they're very happy, very pleased that someone addressed what they should do. They wanted what to do next. And that often includes, so what do I do about my rollover? How do I put all that together? And one last comment, when people are moving toward retirement, the incidence of consolidation grows dramatically. People want to put it all together. It's largely driven, by the way, by administration. So if you're the one asking about Social Security and you're the one answering the questions about what to do with the rollover, you win.
Those are all excellent points. And it kind of leads into a question that may be on the minds of some of our listeners. So is this really, I get that it's a conversation starter. And I get that we need to answer the question, but how does that translate into growth for my business? How does that drive my fee income? How does that drive my assets under management? So, what do you say to those advisors?
Jeff, go for it.
Yeah. So just thinking about the topic, you take a virtual educational webinar. Take the old school seminar, right? The most successful ones, or a small scale engagement. The most successful ones are those around Social Security, because the client comes in, right? It's not a product driven conversation. It's a solutions driven conversation. And to Jack's point, if somebody says, "Wow, this firm, this advisor showed me how to optimize, showed me how to get an additional $150,000, $200,000 in my retirement," they must really know what they're doing. And they can probably help me in other areas of my life, such as retirement income. So to Jack's point, in all these meetings, and that happens often across the firms that we work with. And if we think about that, okay, Jack Sharry helped me optimize my Social Security. Hey, Jack, what do I do now? How do I plan for retirement income? So we provide a natural jumping off point because it's the ultimate gateway discussion to retirement income. And when you get to retirement income, that's where the assets. So you've got the ability then to transition, identify income needs, identify income sources, and then talk about and position solutions to meet those needs and to do it in a very illustrative way. So the conversations begins with optimizing Social Security. It begins with building trust, showing value, and then gives you the ability to pivot and transition into, okay, what do we do now? What's the term we use? What's the next best action to help you get where you're going? And typically that's going to involve revenue generating activity. So it's just a great gateway into those discussions.
Yeah, we worked with a firm recently, Jack, in our audience. A woman has a 401k business, sort of specializes in that area. And she'd seen our pronouncements on social media about our industry-leading software around Social Security. So she called and used our colleague Allison to join on a webinar. Excuse me, it was a client webinar of participants that were on, and she used it as a way to strut her stuff, and it was really our stuff around some of the rules and regs. And one of the things we find across the board, whether it's a webinar like that or it's a client seminar for those that are able to do those, or any way that there's a client contact, when you provide some level of expertise, you answer some of the questions that they're looking to answer, which are basic, like, so when should I start and what are the alternatives and all that we can help advisors with. Once they get the answers, they feel comfortable. And what we found from this particular 401k specialist is her phone rang off the hook after the webinar, wanted to meet, wanted to get down. I know, Jeff, you know more of the detail than I, but it's
the story has grown, Jack, since you last heard. So, that was that webinar that Allison participated in got so much activity that now they're doing a monthly call on Social Security using our client webinar. And we recently got Allison a couple of days ago got a call from one of the advisors at this big 401k retirement plan advisor, RIA, that they actually used our output to help a couple file for Social Security online. So our output was the transition point, and they had the output when the advisor helped the client file for Social Security online. And I posted this earlier today. Mary Beth Franklin wrote an article a couple weeks back. Social Security does have an online portal, and the offices have been closed for a long time. Yet the recent study she quoted, only 43% of applicants have actually filed online. So if you think about that client, there's so many challenges. They're just intimidated by the technology. There's other obstacles. So it goes to Jack's point and what we talk about all the time. It's not one or the other, right? It's not technology or human advice. It's that combination that really brings the value. So I can only imagine how that couple feels about that advisory firm that actually helped them file for Social Security instead of having them go it alone. So the value's there, and that just knocks the door down to all of the other conversations.
And if I could underscore a point Jeff has made, which is that Allison, our colleague, who's just loves all the rules of Social Security, and she's very good about explaining it in English, spends a lot of time, frankly, on the phone with the Social Security Administration, with the advisor and client, where frankly she knows more than the people on the other side at SSA. And she's just providing guidance. What we find with the advisors, frankly, you can be a little bit intimidated because there's all these rules and all this detail and so forth they may not be familiar with. But Allison is a champ. And you quickly find that there may be a lot of rules, but it's pretty basic. For most people, it's pretty straightforward about how to file. And that means deferral. We have a simple interface with the client and the advisor can use together. And actually, we can even share that with the Social Security Administration, because frankly, they are not there to give advice. They're just there to administer. We can provide that advice, and we can get the advisor comfortable, help win business. And frankly, what we find once they've done one or two of these, they're kind of off to the races on their own.
It's a super competitive space out there for financial advisors. And probably one of the biggest challenges they have is differentiating and demonstrating the intangible value that they bring to the equation to their prospective clients. So this seems to me to be a great tool that would be of value. And I like the way that Jeff was positioning it. It's the gateway. So, and I love your tool because it's so easy to flip from Social Security optimization to retirement income planning, or looking at the life insurance from the widow's penalty perspective. So talk a little bit about that value proposition for the advisor and differentiating.
Optimally, that conversation moves from the, hey, we maximize your Social Security, to, okay, now what? Right. So we've got functionality that we built a couple of years ago. We call it income layers. It's just an easy way to identify gaps and position solutions. So Jackie, you referenced spousal benefits, right? Most people don't understand that upon the passing of the first spouse, they're under the impression they still get both benefits. That's not the case. So most times, and it just switches to the highest benefit. Most times you get a reduction of 30%, some cases 40%. So our software clearly illustrates that drop off, and it creates that moment of anxiety for a client to say, "Oh my goodness, when I pass away, what happens? right? I want to protect my wife's lifestyle. I want to protect my husband's lifestyle. So how do we do it? Right. And it's 2 or 3 steps to say, okay, well, if we take someone like me, for example, just turned 50, I can still afford insurance. I can still afford life insurance. And to supplement and protect my wife's, protect her income, to protect her lifestyle when I pass away, I need to have X amount of life insurance in place to do that. Another avenue a lot of advisors take is, how do we provide guaranteed income above Social Security, right? Pensions are a thing of the past. That Mary Beth always says that 3-legged stool has become a pogo stick, right? So it's like, how do we identify what that need might be, and how do we illustrate guaranteed income above Social Security, so that maybe a client's not comfortable with their investments generating an additional $40,000 a year. What if we could guarantee half of that, right? So between Social Security and the annuity payments, the client knows, and this is, the old wholesaler reference, they go out to the mailbox and they know how much is going to be there every month. So you have the ability to take different roads, to position different solutions to meet different needs. But at the end of the day, it's a very smooth and easy transition. I wouldn't say it takes the place of a full financial plan, but it certainly helps start that conversation. Financial planning can be a little bit cumbersome sometimes. Your first or second meeting, maybe a client doesn't want to get into all those details. And this gives you the ability to say, hey, I provided some really, really significant value here because we helped you optimize your Social Security. Now, let's take a look at some areas where I can help you on retirement income. And advisors just have huge success doing that.
That's awesome. So as we're wrapping up, we're sitting here January 2022. We've talked about the wave. We've talked about the technology, talked about the opportunity in demonstrating value. Is there anything else you want to share with our listeners that would motivate them or directionally send them, down a path that will really help them break through in 2022? Talking about Social Security or related to Social Security?
Maybe I'll start with one that was probably a little off from what you asked, Jack, but I think it's so important, and that is just the basic. And then I think Jeff probably has something up on the Social Security side of that question. One of the things that we see, one of the biggest issues, we're one of the leaders in financial technology as used by advisors, and one of the things we see as one of the biggest issues is advisor adoption. As I study why it is that advisors don't take advantage of technology, there's all sorts of reasons and rationale and all the rest of it. But it really comes down to just being comfortable with it. They're afraid of the question that they might get from their client or prospect that they may not be able to answer. As with anything where you're not so sure, a lot of times it's good to go to someone that can help you out, get comfortable with it. And that's where we've been talking about. Jeff is very helpful with so many of the advisors we work with. Allison on the more technical Social Security rules side. Either way, we're here to help advisors get comfortable with it, because the investor wants what we're talking about. The consumer wants what we're talking about. They want more money. It's we get fancy with how we talk about this stuff, but what the client wants, what the investor, prospect, call it what you will, what they want is more money. So, and Social Security, if it's filed right, will produce, as we've talked, $150,000 on average, some more, some less. But that's a lot of money, and I think would qualify as more money. So I'll leave it at that. Take advantage of what we do at Lifefield. We like to help people, because once they get over the hump, they basically are off to the races. They're busy making money. They don't need to talk to us anymore. We're always there for them, but they're off to the races. And Jeff, I don't know if you have anything to add to that in terms of the Social Security side.
Yeah, just a quick. I would just have a quick takeaway in that when it comes to Social Security, don't pigeonhole your ideal client or prospect. And I mean, demographically, right? So, don't wait until someone's 62 to have the discussion about Social Security, because you could be missing the boat in other areas, right? So if we open to our example before about life insurance, if you wait till someone's 62 to talk about protecting survivor benefits with insurance, it's probably too late. You can't afford insurance at 62, but if you get to somebody at 48, at 50, at 52, those things are still applicable. And folks are, so I guess my big takeaway is expand this conversation. Use Social Security as a starter to a conversation with a 50-year-old, with a 52-year-old, because you got a chance. You got a fighting chance to put together or at least start building that retirement income strategy. Those folks are in their peak earning years, whether there's assets accumulated or there's more assets coming in. I mean, that's everybody's goal is to add revenue, right, to their firm. So expand your horizons a little bit, expand your demographics when it comes to this discussion, because I never thought I'd be thinking about Social Security, but here we are, right? And it's going to be part of my retirement income strategy. And I just think it's very relevant for lots and lots of folks today, more than we typically know.
Yeah, if I could add on to that, Jack, I remember when I turned 50, which I could barely remember, it was so long ago. But I remember turning 50, and I remember exactly where it took place. I was driving into my office. I was up over this hill and I was about to come down into the valley where the office was located. Sort of a view from the highway, you could see it ahead. And I somehow was this it's like a manna from heaven or something. I thought, I'm 50. I'm going to be retiring. I better get my button gear.
Yeah.
I remember what happened. I was just like the city in the valley. Actually, wasn't on a hill, but the city in the valley. I'm looking at it. I go, I'm going to be now. I'm still working, and I'm past the retirement age, shall we say? But the point is that you start. I've observed it, and because I have a lot of friends who went through the same thing. You turn 50, you get pretty serious about it, and a lot of people turn 50 these days and wonder what the heck to do. And also, with all that we've been through, COVID and all the rest, people are much more serious about their money than they've ever been.
Agreed. 100%. This has been a great session. You two guys are awesome. I'm sure our advisors are really going to appreciate the guidance, the insights, the direction you've given us. Thank you very much for your partnership with InsureMark. You guys have been super partners. For all the advisors listening who are not taking advantage of the Social Security Planner app that InsureMark offers, easily to access and free, you contact one of our advisor development consultants to get access to that. So thank you guys very much. I appreciate it. And to all our listeners, good luck, good selling. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Breakthrough Advisor podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of InsureMark. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only.